Today, we'll look at a couple of demonstrations of working with content in Box and Office 365. We'll cover how Box is fundamentally different from OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online, and also how we integrate with the desktop experience and the Office 365 web apps. We'll start in the Office 365 portal. I'm logged in as Brandon and will be playing the role of a project manager during this demo. As an Office 365 subscriber, Brandon has access to various services where he can work on content. OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, Yammer, etc. It's not always clear to him what's the best place to collaborate, but with OneDrive being the place where he stores his personal business content, that's where he usually starts. Let's take a look. Again, OneDrive is for his personal business content. He won't find any team, department, or project-related content here, just his personal files, the equivalent of My Documents in Office 365. It does show him his most recent files and most recent libraries that he's been working on, as well as content that's been specifically shared with him. But notice that even though he's part of several groups and teams, and as such, a member with access to their corresponding SharePoint sites, none of that content from those sites shows up here. That content is not considered being shared with him because it's being shared with that group. Now let's take a look at some typical tasks Brandon might perform any given day. He's been tasked with helping complete a scope document for a project. He needs a recent diagram of his company's services to include in the document. He knows those diagrams are maintained and shared by the marketing team. While he and everyone else in the company has been given access to the Shared Marketing Assets library, they simply can't be accessed from OneDrive. That's departmental content that's been made available to the all company group, not shared with each user individually. So it won't show up for anyone here. However, he does see a search box labeled Search Everything, so he'll try to search there. But searching from OneDrive only returns OneDrive search results, even though the box says Search Everything. So he'll need to switch over to SharePoint. From SharePoint, he can see various sites that he frequently visits. But this is Microsoft's version of frequent sites. It relies on their search engine and uses proprietary logarithms to determine what's frequent. He frequents the marketing site. Believe me, I've done this demo a good number of times using Brandon's account. The site is still not showing up. However, look at this company picnic site it's suggesting. I deleted this site a couple of days ago, and it's still suggesting it. I've done nothing to this page to force these results. This behavior is out of the box. But let's carry on. Like I said earlier, he knows those diagrams are maintained by marketing. So once again, he searches for marketing. But notice that the marketing site is not showing up as an autocomplete recommendation in the search box. He needs to perform the search, at which time it will show up under Sites. From the marketing site, there is no clear indication on the page of where the diagrams, images, or logos are. But Brandon happens to know they are in the Shared Marketing Assets library, which luckily has been added to the left navigation menu. This is not always the case. He goes to the library and finds the diagrams that he's been searching for. Given the amount of work it took him to get here, he downloads the images, as he can't access them in SharePoint from the document. He also doesn't want to have to look for them again, so he saves them to OneDrive. He could sync this content to his desktop, but it's not really his content, and it would sync much more than just the diagrams. He doesn't want all that content taking up space in his laptop. From here on out, he has his own copy, which sadly may become outdated without the help of marketing. So let's hope he stays on top of it. Due to the fragmentation of content and how difficult it can be to find it, This sort of thing happens with SharePoint all the time. But let's carry on. Brandon needs to complete that scope document. Now, there is no clear navigation path to the project management site. This is the marketing site, and its navigation is reserved for it. He could search for the project management site, but he remembers searching here would only return results from this site. So he clicks on the Office 365 menu and selects SharePoint. Now, the project management site does show up in his frequent sites, probably because he frequently updates content there, which is different than viewing or downloading, so it matches that frequent search criteria that's executing behind the scenes. In the project management site, users have been given quick access to a document library containing project management templates and a project time tracking spreadsheet. Notice that it's a very different layout from the marketing site. This is common in SharePoint, as the administration of each site is usually delegated to a different user within the corresponding team. Otherwise, it would be too much for the SharePoint admins and IT to maintain. Here, each project has been assigned its own library. A link to the Bright Start project library has been added to the left menu. I'm purposely keeping it simple to save myself some time. Again, this won't always be the case. From the Bright Start library, he finds the project scope document and opens it in the Office web app. Now, let's go ahead and add that diagram. He saved it to his OneDrive, so it's too soon for it to have become outdated. We'll go to the project scope section, click on Insert Picture, and choose the file. Now, thanks to the OneDrive Sync client, he does at least have access to his personal business content directly from the file browser. Remember this. We'll come back to it. That's it. He's done. Now, that took some time. But what would that process have been like if Brandon was using Box? The moment Brandon logs into Box, he has access to all his content, not just his personal business files. Yes, he has access to those. They're right there in that folder titled Brandon's Documents. But notice he also has access to project management, the main place he collaborates with his colleagues on projects, shared marketing assets, as does the rest of the company, HR employee resources, even a folder that has been shared with him by an external party, such as the Fab Viewing catalog. But back to the task at hand, updating the scope document. Brandon could easily go to the shared marketing assets from here. Look for the diagram, download it, and add it to the document. He could even search for it quite easily from the search box that really does search everything. But since Box gives him access to all his content, even from the file browser, he doesn't have to worry about that. Let me show you what I mean. He goes to the project management folder and finds the scope document. Here he can preview the file, even carry a conversation with his colleagues. That's real collaboration. This conversation stays with the file. It's not lost in a crazy thread of back and forth email. You can see where Raphael asked him to insert the diagram into section 2 of the file. Brandon can respond and let Raphael know once he's finished making his changes. But back to updating the file. He opens the file in the Office web apps. Yes, we also have that level of integration. He finds his place in the document and clicks Insert Picture. Now from the file browser, he chooses Box. Box gives him access to all his content. This is not just his personal files like the OneDrive Sync client. I told you we'd get back to that. So it works kind of like a map drive. It's not even taking up space in his laptop. He selects the diagram directly from the Shared Marketing Assets folder. That's it. He's done. Less than half the time and no risk of outdated content. He used the diagram that's maintained by marketing. He goes back to the file to let Raphael know that he's done. Now, let's take another look at Box Drive. From Windows Explorer, Box Drive shows him the same folder structure he sees in Box, and everything is secured the same way. He won't be able to add, edit, or delete content in any folder unless he has that level of access on that folder. All the content is there, but it's not taking up space. Again, it behaves like a map drive. OneDrive for Business has a similar experience, but only for the user's personal content. If the user wanted to see content from any project or team-related site, he would have to go to that site first, find the library, and choose to sync it. Not easy. And again, syncing may not be what the user had in mind. As you can see, Box and Office 365 are fundamentally different on how they can be used to publish and collaborate on content. SharePoint and OneDrive for Business give users a fragmented experience that's cumbersome to work with. And we didn't even cover Teams, Office 365 groups, or Yammer. It may introduce risk from a security and compliance perspective, and adds administrative burdens when you think of the hundreds, if not thousands, of sites that are common with most SharePoint implementations. Box, with its approach to centralized content, reduces risk and administrative overhead, freeing up IT resources to work on other solutions. It's easier and much quicker to use, allowing employees like Brandon to be more productive in their day-to-day life with access to all their content from any device. I hope you enjoyed the demo.